and welcome to the GuideWell Insights Lounge. So, I wanted to start out by asking you, is this your first time here at xMed?
This is my first time at xMed, yeah.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
so talk to me a little bit about some of the big trends that you've been hearing on the main stage speakers talk about. Is there anything in particular that's starting to become clear after a day and a half?
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely the artificial intelligence, big data piece, and the personalized precision medicine. I mean, I think those are two things that speak to me and to what we do. I think it was Brad Templeton shared a nice slide that said, if you don't have software somewhere in your company, in your product, then you won't be around. So, I mean, it's over the past year, that's a lot of what we've been thinking about, how we take our technology to prevent surgical infections. But as the care pathway evolves there, how do we start to leverage the information that's coming from personalized medicine, and then crunch it with the AI that's out there to help inform better decision making and better therapies across the board.
So talk a little bit more about that, because we've been talking here in the Insights Lounge about some of the challenges that companies and the industry in general has been having with integrating these leading edge technologies into care delivery or into the patient experience. So what do you feel like are some of these big challenges that we need to be overcoming in order to really bring these leading edge technologies into the fold and make them mainstream?
I think I would say treatment pathway, right? So, even for the clean incision solution that we developed, we said we want to fight surgical infections without changing the way surgeons do surgery, right? So a lot of the new technologies that come into play, we can say they're the next best thing, but if it doesn't integrate into the existing treatment pathway, you're not really going to see it be adopted. So if we're talking about personalized medicine, where do we get that data from the patient in the normal flow of care? I think a lot of the personalized wearables that we have kind of solve that problem.
Sure.
But I don't know that we've gotten to the point of integrating them back and funneling them back into the care providers so that they can make the right decisions.
From the provider perspective, we've been talking a lot about the provider, it seems, this year in particular. There's been a lot of attention on provider burnout. There's been a lot of attention, and in technology, we always talk about EMR and how difficult that has been. Although the data shows that more and more care delivery, clinics and practices are integrating EMR, and they're doing it okay. But what can we do to better prepare providers for some of these exponential technologies as they start to come into the fold?
Well, I think they should come here.
Oh,
right?
okay, well, perfect.
my wife's an ophthalmologist back up in the Bay Area, and she's home with my daughter right now, just a little further south in the island. But I'm like, next year, we'll get a babysitter and you're going to come here. I think it's just the same as it is for me to kind of break away from your day-to-day operational focus and kind of be elevated for a bit and see how the community is evolving from a 50,000-foot view. It opens your mind up into how you might integrate that into your company, into your practice. As a patient, how you might integrate that into your daily lives.
So I'm going to jump on that and just ask, as far as commercializing these technologies, what's your advice for other companies? I mean, you're at the helm of a company that's doing this. You're taking data, you're using AI, you're using deep learning, you're using remote monitoring. You're really, you're at the forefront of convergence here, right? You've got it in the market. What's your advice to others who are doing the same thing?
I was just at a conference last week, and I really harped on the idea of stakeholders, right? So again, it's that treatment pathway. So many different people are involved in a single patient's care. How do we ensure that the technologies that we're developing, that we're commercializing, have broad stakeholder alignment and support? So that means, taking your initial idea out to someone and having them, throw it right back at you.
Right.
And if you got to hit the drawing board again, you iterate and you bring it back out to them again and say, what about now? Because we're in the right direction, but I might not have, put the right point on it yet. And how do I, with my team, sharpen that so that you're ready to kind of go into battle with it?
How would you factor in what we need to do in terms of aligning incentives with driving these solutions to market?
Well, I think earlier, at the beginning of the conference, we heard issues with various associations that might be kind of mired in older ways of thinking, reticent to change, because it means that someone's lunch will be eaten to some extent. But I think if you look at, again, if you come to a place like this and you can see what the alternatives are, and you can get on board with the new technologies, new care delivery pathways early, you can say there's a whole other world out there for you to care for your patients, right? And that's what the technology has the ability to do, is take the risk away, take the workflow away, and then we can look our patients in the eye and focus on reassurance, prognoses, right? Giving them an idea of where their disease state's going to head, and ultimately where their wellness is going to take them.
Is there any concern that you have about overusing technology, and in a sense then losing the humanity of really practicing medicine or treating patients? How do we mitigate that?
I mean, I think there is a bit of data overload. So I think technology can be the answer again. You know, if you think about the terrorist threat level, you know, it's sort of just like a general idea of where we are.
Right.
I think we need more of that when we to basically integrate all the data in a way that makes it useful, instead of saying, here's a data dump, figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
So data overload can be an issue.
What has you most excited looking ahead? You're hearing all of this great talk about these innovations coming down the pipe. We've been hearing a lot about longevity. We've been hearing a lot about some of the opportunities to disrupt people's health at the cellular level, at the DNA level.
Yeah.
I mean, so what has you most excited about the future of healthcare?
Well, I can think back to the keynote last night with Dr. Hood. I mean, this idea, I'm an engineer by training. I think of manufacturing process control, and that's in a lot of ways what he was talking about yesterday, right? Let's establish a baseline wellness with all of these measurements that we can take, right? And these are, we're talking about millions of measurements, and then using AI to say, when we deviate from wellness, right? When we deviate from that normal process that we're trying to output, which is life, right? It's a signal for us to intervene and say, what might be going off the rails here? How do we get in there and stop it from getting worse?
Right.
So when I look at infectious disease where we play, I see a future where patient zeros are identified immediately. I see a world where when we go in for interventions, there's 0% chance in which you'll come out with a hospital-acquired infection, because we can see them, we know how to mitigate them, we get the patients out the door faster and back to their lives.
Well, we look forward to a future of health that definitely is focused on that. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today from the Guidewell Insights Lounge.